Hello and a very good afternoon to all News9 viewers. I'm Neha Bhan. Let's take a look at some of the top national and international stories of this hour. We begin with what's been happening on the Israel-Hamas war front. Now it's day 30th of the Israel-Hamas war and there seems to be no end to the fighting in sight so far. Let's give you an update on all the major happenings on the war front as of day 30th. The death toll on the Palestinian side has now risen to 9,227. This is as per the Gaza Health Ministry. On the Israeli side, the death toll is over 1,400, while the number of injured is nearing the 5,500 mark. 1.4 million people have been displaced in the Gazan enclave, while on the Israeli side, the number of displaced is 250,000. Close to 400 trucks have till now gone into Gaza carrying relief material. 247 soldiers and civilians still remain as hostages with Hamas, while 4 hostages have been released and 1 has been rescued. Israel's Heritage Minister Eliyahu made a significant claim regarding Israel's strategy in the war against Hamas. In a statement, Eliyahu said that dropping the atomic bomb on Gaza was quote-unquote one of the possibilities. In the same interview, Eliyahu also said that there was no such thing as uninvolved civilians in Gaza and that Israel would not be handing over the humanitarian aid into those he termed as quote-unquote Nazis. Eliyahu belongs to Itamar Ben-Gvir's far-right party and is not part of the security cabinet which is involved in the wartime decision-making. He also does not hold any sway over the war cabinet which is directing the war against the Hamas terror group. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has denied the claims made by Eliyahu. Taking action against Eliyahu, Netanyahu has suspended him from attending any further meetings of the administration. Rebuking the claims, Netanyahu said that the minister's remarks about nuking Gaza was quote-unquote detached from reality. Netanyahu added that the IDF was acting in accordance with the highest standards of international law with an objective to prevent any harm to the uninvolved people. That's a big claim made by Israel's made by Israel's Heritage Minister Eliyahu, who stated that dropping the atomic bomb on Gaza was quote-unquote one of the possibilities. However, Netanyahu has rebuked these claims and said that the minister's remark about nuking Gaza was quote-unquote detached from reality. Israel's defense minister has said that Israel has delivered a quote-unquote hard blow to Hamas brigades and destroyed critical military infrastructure belonging to Hamas terror group. Addressing a press conference, he said that the IDF had killed 12 Hamas commanders till now and would continue chasing others. Take a listen.
Hamas brigades are getting hard blows and we dismantle infrastructure after infrastructure. We can see here the areas in Gaza. In each square, there are infrastructure. These are falling apart as a result of the determined action of the fighters of the army. I can tell you that 12 Hamas commanders were killed. We will get to everyone from the chain of the command to the terrorist in the field.
United States President Joe Biden said on the 4th of November that progress had been made on securing a so-called humanitarian pause in the fighting between Israel and Hamas. President Joe Biden on Saturday said yes when asked by reporters whether any progress has been made on the prospect of a humanitarian pause in the conflict in Gaza.
Mr. President, any progress on a humanitarian pause? Yes.
Said you support genocide. What do you think?
Surprisingly enough, this statement comes after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, rejected US calls for a humanitarian pause in the Gaza region. and said that no ceasefire with Hamas is possible until hostages are freed. He stressed that Israel refuses any temporary ceasefire that does not include the release of hostages. Arab leaders publicly pressed United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Saturday to secure an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, hours after Palestinians said an Israeli airstrike killed at least 15 people in a UN-run school being used as a shelter. In a rare open display of disagreement, the top United States diplomat pushed back as he stood back to his counterparts at a press conference, saying a ceasefire would only let Hamas terrorists regroup. Listen in.
We come together here today sharing the same fundamental interest and objective: to end this conflict in a way that ensures lasting peace and security in the region. We may have different views and positions on certain necessary steps to achieve that objective. But today we reaffirmed our individual commitments to continuing to work toward that end. Our joint efforts have also been critical in increasing the flow of humanitarian assistance to Gaza. I'm particularly grateful to Egypt for its significant effort to facilitate a mechanism with Israel and with the United Nations to do just that. Each day, more than 100 trucks are moving to Rafah, up from 0 just a little over a week ago. But that is not nearly enough. Today, we spoke about ways to accelerate and expand the sustained delivery of aid. Israel must take every possible measure to prevent civilian casualties. In my meetings with Israeli officials yesterday, I conveyed additional steps that they can and should take to do just that. Protecting civilians will help prevent Hamas from further exploiting the situation. But most important, it's simply the right and moral thing to do. When I see a Palestinian boy or girl pulled from the wreckage of a building, it hits me in the gut, just as it hits everyone in the gut. And I see my own children in their faces. And as human beings, how can any of us not feel the same way? What we have to do, more than anything else, all of us, everyone concerned, is to prevent the dehumanization.
Hundreds of people gathered outside the residence of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in protest against the administration's failure to bring back hostages held by Hamas in Gaza. Waving blue and white Israeli flags, the protesters barged through police barriers as widespread anger sustains over the intelligence and security forces' incapability, leading to the deadly attack by Hamas on the 7th of October. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been facing severe criticism over allegations of ignoring warnings about an impending attack from Hamas. Netanyahu in turn has vowed to raze Gaza to the ground and eliminate Hamas.
הביתה!
Pro-Palestinian protesters took to the streets in several cities, including London, Berlin, Paris, Ankara, Istanbul and Washington. They demanded a ceasefire in Gaza and criticized Israel for escalating its military operations against Hamas. Let's show you what's been happening in Washington to begin with, where thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters gathered outside the White House amidst the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas. Take a look.
Free Palestine! Food for Palestine! Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame on you! Charge you with genocide! Biden, Biden, you can! We'll be free! Food for Palestine! Free Palestine!
They called for a ceasefire in Gaza, waving Palestinian flags, holding signs and chanting slogans against United States President Joe Biden. Meanwhile, let's now take you to Sydney. In central Sydney, hundreds of Palestinian supporters came together, urging a ceasefire to stop the violence in Gaza. They assembled in Hyde Park, unfurled a Palestinian flag, held signs, carried dolls symbolizing the victims, and then undertook a march through the city. Take a look.
Package for the state of Israel terrorizing.
When they expelled more than 7
USA! How many kids did it kill today? Israel! USA! How many kids did it kill today?
But I will make this note.
All of that, please remove it. Apparently they are.
Thing that the Israeli occupation always was, always will be.
Funding package for the state of Israel terrorizing.
When they expelled more than 7
USA! How many kids did it kill today? Israel! USA! How many kids did it kill today?
Let's now take you to Toronto and Ottawa. Thousands of pro-Palestinian demonstrators took to the streets calling for an urgent ceasefire in Gaza. On the 30th of October, Canada's foreign minister once again emphasized the need for a humanitarian pause in the Gaza conflict. The minister also mentioned the urgency of evacuating Canadians and hostages from the region while providing essential aid. Take a look. In both Chile and Venezuela, hundreds of people took to the streets to express their support for the Palestinians in Gaza. They waved Palestinian flags and strongly criticized Israel, accusing it of carrying out genocide in the ongoing attacks on the Palestinian Gaza Strip. Across the globe, thousands of demonstrators have been marching in various cities over the last few days as Israel has escalated its airstrikes on the besieged Strip since the 7th of October. Let's now take you to Manhattan, where waving Palestinian flags and chanting Free Palestine and Israel is a terrorist state, hundreds of pro-Palestinian protesters took to the streets of Manhattan. The New York protest was one of the pro-Palestinian rallies around the world, calling for a ceasefire and castigating Israel after its military intensified its assault on Hamas.
The occupation of Chhattisgarh.
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
An end to the siege, to the blockade.
Similar protests occurred in London, Berlin, Paris, Ankara, Istanbul and Washington, D.C. In Paris, demonstrators held Palestinian flags with slogans like "Stop the massacres" and "Ceasefire now." This rally in Paris on Saturday was one of the first large gatherings in support of the Palestinians legally allowed in the city since Hamas attacked Israel on the 7th of October. In Berlin, over 6,000 people attended the rally according to the police. Now, in Berlin, in fact, thousands gathered in a pro-Palestine protest urging a ceasefire in Gaza. The police reported over 6,000 attendees at the rally. One of the protesters called for an immediate halt to the bombings and an end to the ethnic cleansing happening in Gaza, quote-unquote. He also mentioned that the demonstrators were advocating for a one-state solution. Take a look. Protests took place in Istanbul and Ankara too, targeting the United States and Israel. These demonstrations occurred just a day before United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken's planned visit to Turkey while the conflict in Gaza escalated. A State Department spokesperson confirmed Blinken's visit to Turkey on Saturday, marking his second trip to the Middle East within a month. Meanwhile, in London, thousands of protesters gathered calling for a ceasefire in Gaza as Israel escalated its military offensive against Hamas in the Palestinian enclave. This marked the fourth protest held since Hamas initiated its attack on Israel on the 7th of October. The demonstrators marched from a particular circus to square with some displaying signs that read "Stop bombing children" and "Ceasefire now." In fact, it was Piccadilly Circus. Switching our focus from the protests that have been happening in various parts of the world, a French military airplane carrying 18 tons of humanitarian aid for Gaza took off on Saturday to Egypt. From Egypt, the plane will be taken into the Palestinian enclave. Among the key supplies it carries are medicine, food and generators meant to elevate the plight of civilians in the besieged Gaza Strip. As per reports, close to 400 aid trucks have till now went into Gaza as the humanitarian crisis continues to deepen. Nearly 9,500 people have lost their lives, while over 15,000 have been injured. 1.4 million people have been displaced in the Gazan enclave. Close to 400 trucks have gone into the Gaza carrying relief material, and this is the French military aircraft carrying 18 tons of humanitarian aid that has now arrived in Egypt. Now, amidst the war, several Gazans who were in Israel have been asked to leave the country. Take a look at this report to know more.
Ayman Shaban is one of the thousands of Gazan workers in Israel and the occupied West Bank who were sent back to Gaza on Friday. Like many others, he returned through the Kerem Shalom crossing to the Palestinian enclave, which has been pounded by Israeli jets and tanks for weeks. Shaban said he had a permit to work in Israel and worked for about a week after the Passover holiday. He said police attacked his home and held him in detention after the October 7th Hamas attack on Israeli towns. On Thursday night, the office of Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the workers from Gaza who were in Israel on the day of the outbreak of the war would be returned to Gaza. Other workers crossing into the Palestinian enclave also said they were detained and ill-treated by Israeli authorities. Some still had plastic stickers carrying numbers around their legs. Jamal Ismail is a worker from the Maghazi refugee camp in the central Gaza Strip.
We would serve Israelis. We would mop the floors and clean for them. We worked in construction, restaurants, in supermarkets, for the cheapest price. Despite this, we were humiliated, very humiliated, even the elderly. Some of us died. There's no medicine, nothing.
Palestinian officials say those from areas in northern Gaza would have to stay in the south after Israeli forces have completed cutting off roads late on Thursday. Israel issued more than 18,000 permits allowing Gazans to cross into Israel and work in sectors like agriculture or construction, but scrapped the system after the Hamas attack.
Moving on now, Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in an interview to the Time magazine has asserted that it is difficult to overthrow her government through a democratic system. This statement from the Prime Minister comes after she appeared on the cover of the Time magazine. The headline on the magazine cover read, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and the Fate of Democracy in Bangladesh. The edition of the magazine is set to hit the stands on the 10th of November. Sheikh Hasina will be looking for a third straight term in the Prime Minister's office as Bangladesh goes to polls in January next year. According to the excerpts released by the news outlet, Hasina said, and I quote, I am confident that my people are with me. They are my main strength and it is not that easy to overthrow me through a democratic system. The only option is just to eliminate me and I am ready to die for my people, unquote. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has been facing protests back home as several groups, mainly supported by the opposition party BNP, have called for her resignation and allow a caretaker government to conduct the elections. Germany's Hamburg airport became inoperational on Saturday night over a hostage situation as an armed man with a child in his vehicle breached security and fired shots on the premises. The airport closed for all takeoffs and landings shortly after the incident around 8 p.m. local time. The car with the 35-year-old man and 4-year-old child was parked under a plane, a police spokesperson said, and officers were at the scene with a large presence late on Saturday. Hamburg police took to X, formerly known as Twitter, and said, we are on the site with a large contingent of emergency services. We are currently assuming a static hostage situation. The authorities said that the suspect shot his weapon twice in the air and then threw burning bottles from the vehicle. The police in a statement stated that they believe that a custody dispute is the background to this particular operation. Russia's defense ministry on Sunday announced that their new nuclear-powered submarine, Imperator Alexander III, carried out a successful test launch of the Bulava ballistic missile designed to carry nuclear warheads. The defense ministry also shared in a statement that firing a ballistic missile is the final element of state tests, after which a decision will be made to accept the cruiser into the Navy. President Vladimir Putin has been pushing for Russia to maintain its nuclear deterrent to counter what he calls growing security threats as ties between Moscow and the West have hit new lows over the war Russia launched in Ukraine in 2022. Indian High Commissioner to Canada Sanjay Kumar Verma has said that neither Canada nor its allies have shown concrete evidence related to terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar's murder. Verma has urged Ottawa to release evidence to back up its allegation in connection with the killing of pro-Khalistan terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. In an interview with the Globe and Mail, Verma reiterated that neither Canada nor its allies have shown concrete evidence related to Nijjar's murder. On the 18th of September, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau told the House of Commons that there were credible allegations of a potential link between Indian agents and the killing of Nijjar in Surrey, British Columbia on the 18th of June. Canada's top Indian diplomat now has demanded Ottawa to produce a substantiate evidence, in fact, an evidence to substantiate its allegations that Indian agents killed Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. This was the claim made by Justin Trudeau in the House of Commons, where he said that there were credible allegations of a potential link between Indian agents and the killing of Nijjar in Surrey. Ever since, India has been repeatedly asking Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, for proof, but there has been none produced so far. Khalistani terrorist Gurpatwant Singh Panun has threatened the people planning to travel via Air India on the 19th of November, saying that their lives would be in danger. The Canada-based terrorist outfit Sikhs for Justice chief asked Sikhs to not fly on Air India planes on and after the 19th of November. India will raise the threat to Air India flights and seek enhanced security for the airline with Canadian authorities. Panun's latest threat is also seen as a veiled reference to the Air India plane bombing. The bombing of Air India plane was perpetuated by Khalistani extremists way back in 1985. Let's get you the latest from this front now. The national capital of Delhi continues to be choking, with the air quality index plunging to close to 500. This is the fourth consecutive day when the AQI has remained in the severe category. In view of the worsening situation, the Delhi government has also decided to shut schools for the primary classes till the 10th of November, while the classes for the higher standards have been given the option to shift to online mode. Delhi's Lieutenant Governor V.K. Saxena called for an emergency meeting on the air pollution crisis and asked the government to step up efforts to control the emissions. The Lieutenant Governor has urged the public to remain indoors as far as possible, avoid unnecessary travel and, if necessary, to use public transport so as to ensure a lesser volume of traffic and therefore reduced emissions and dust pollution. Now, there's also a recommendation of allowing the use of only BS6 vehicles in the Delhi NCR region. Water sprinklers and anti-smog guns are being deployed in double shifts in an effort to minimize the air crisis. Now, let's give you an account of the most polluted cities from all across the world. Aksu in China is the most polluted city in the world with a staggering AQI of 1,234. New Delhi comes in third on the list with an AQI of 557. Following Delhi, there are a total of 10 other Indian cities which make it to the list. Now, this includes the cities adjoining Delhi like Noida, Faridabad and Ghaziabad. And here, right on your screens, is an AQI comparison of all the metropolitan cities of India. While capital Delhi reeled under severe AQI at 385, Kolkata and Mumbai was slightly better at AQI 168 and 155 respectively. The air quality in southern cities, however, remained good, with Chennai at AQI 57 and Bengaluru at 37. My colleague, in fact, also interviewed Delhi's Environment Minister Gopal Rai. Let's listen in.
सुबह सैर को नहीं जा सकते, प्राइमरी स्कूल बंद है, क्या हालात क्या बन रहे हैं दिल्ली में?
देखिए, अभी जो साइंटिस्ट के जो ओपिनियन है, मौसम विभाग का जो अनुमान है कि अभी एक विशेष स्थिति मौसम की बनी हुई है। हवा की स्पीड काफ़ी कम है, टेम्परेचर जो है वो डाउन जा रहा है। तो ऐसे में जो पूरे उत्तर भारत के अंदर एक जो प्रदूषण के कण हैं वो वायुमंडल में नहीं जा रहे हैं, उनका बिखराव नहीं हो रहा है और वो एक ठहराव की स्थिति बनी हुई है। अब इस ठहराव की स्थिति की वजह से क्या है कि लोगों को जलन महसूस हो रही है, लोगों को सांसों में दिक्कत हो रही है। तो अभी अगर हम देखें तो एक गंभीर श्रेणी में जो है एक यूआई जो है वो बना हुआ है और उसको देखते हुए ऐसा भी अनुमान लगाया जा रहा है कि अभी हवा की स्पीड जो है वो आगामी दिनों तक, जैसा मैंने कई बार कहा है कि अगले 10-12 दिन जो हैं मतलब वो थोड़े क्रिटिकल हैं दिल्ली के लिए। और उसको देखते हुए ही अभी हमने ये निर्णय लिया है कि दिल्ली के अंदर कम से कम, क्योंकि CAQM अपना गाइडलाइन तो पूरे NCR के लिए जारी करता है, लेकिन सब जगह उसकी धज्जियां उड़ाई जा रही हैं। हमने ये निर्णय लिया कल कि हम दिल्ली के अंदर इसे सख्ती से लागू करेंगे, क्योंकि अपने हिस्से का काम हम ईमानदारी से पूरा करेंगे।
आपने लागू करने का जिक्र किया है, तो मैं इसमें एक सवाल आपकी तरफ से जोड़ देता हूं कि आपने ये भी कहा है कुछ अधिकारी जो हैं वो सुन नहीं रहे हैं, मसलन DPCC के जो चेयरमैन हैं, तो ऐसे में क्रियान्वयन कैसे हो पाएगा फिर?
देखिए, परिस्थितियां विपरीत हैं। परिस्थितियां ऐसी हैं, जैसा मैंने कहा कि DPCC की जिम्मेदारी ही बनाई गई है इसलिए कि वो प्रदूषण को नियंत्रण करे। वो दिल्ली प्रदूषण नियंत्रण कमेटी है, लेकिन अब उसके चेयरमैन साहब वो सारे काम करने को तैयार हैं जिसको नहीं करना चाहिए। उन्होंने सुप्रीम कोर्ट के निर्देश के बाद, कैबिनेट के फैसले के बाद स्मॉग टावर बंद कर दिया। जो यहाँ पर रियल टाइम सोर्स इन्फोर्समेंट स्टडी हो रही थी उसको बंद कर दिया। तो स्थितियां तो विपरीत हैं। आपने देखा होगा, हमने बैठकें बुलाई, सीनियर अधिकारी नहीं आए, लेकिन हम 1 to 1 सबसे बात कर रहे हैं। हमने LG साहब से भी मीटिंग में हमने ये बात रखी कि भाई ये वक्त ऐसा है कि सबको काम करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि फैसले लेने से ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है कि ग्राउंड पर कैसे उसका इम्प्लीमेंटेशन हो। क्योंकि हम ये देख रहे हैं कि चलो हरियाणा के लोग जो है लापरवाही कर रहे हैं, उत्तर प्रदेश के लोग लापरवाही कर रहे हैं, किसी भी गाइडलाइन को फॉलो नहीं कर रहे हैं, लेकिन दिल्ली को तो सख्ती से फॉलो करना पड़ेगा। इसलिए हमारी जद्दोजहद है। परिस्थितियां विपरीत हैं, लेकिन 24/7 मैं इसी प्रयास में लगा हूं कि कैसे ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा जो है जो प्रदूषण के सोर्स हैं उनको नियंत्रित किया जाए। दिल्ली के अंदर ग्रैप 3 के नियम हमने लागू किया है। दिल्ली के अंदर सभी जो कंस्ट्रक्शन एक्टिविटीज़ हैं जो नेशनल इंपॉर्टेंस की हैं उसको छोड़ करके बंद किया गया है। उसके लिए टीमें बनाई हैं, लगातार कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि उनकी मॉनिटरिंग हो ग्राउंड फील्ड पे। और उसी तरह से BS3 पेट्रोल की और BS4 डीजल की गाड़ियों पे प्रतिबंध किया गया है। ट्रांसपोर्ट और ट्रैफिक पुलिस के लोगों से हम संपर्क कर रहे हैं कि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा ग्राउंड पर जाएं, क्योंकि जब तक ग्राउंड पे फील्डिंग नहीं होगी तब तक नियम बनाने से उसका फ़ायदा नहीं होगा। दिल्ली के अंदर जगह जगह हॉट स्पॉट्स पे जो है पानी के छिड़काव का उसको जो है कोशिश की जा रही है कि उसको ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा मॉनिटर्ड तरीके से जो है वो किया जाए। तो ये जो कदम है उन सारे कदम को जो है सख्ती के साथ दिल्ली के अंदर पालन करना हमारी प्राथमिकता है।
Chhattisgarh Chief Minister Bhupesh Baghel on Sunday released party's manifesto named Bharose Ki Ghoshna Patra 2023-28 for the upcoming assembly elections in the state. Announcing the poll promises, Baghel said that if the party is elected to power, the Congress party, they will conduct a caste census in the state. He also assured of providing a 500 rupees subsidy on gas cylinders. According to Baghel, all the schemes that are currently operational will continue as well if Congress retains power in the state. Elections to the 90-member Chhattisgarh Assembly will be held in 2 phases on the 7th of November and 17th, while the results will be announced on the 3rd of December. Chhattisgarh Chief Minister has released party's manifesto named Bharose Ki Ghoshna Patra, Bharose Ka Ghoshna Patra 2023-28. It's the Congress's government in Chhattisgarh now as well, and Bhupesh Baghel is aiming for another term. And the critics have also stated that Congress has a fair chance of returning to power in Chhattisgarh. Baghel enjoys quite a lot of support in the state. He has said that if his party is elected to power, it will conduct a caste census in the state.
पिछले साल आपने देखा होगा कि किस प्रकार से हमने घोषणा पत्र जारी किया था और उसको हम लोगों ने इम्प्लीमेंट किया था। चाहे वो किसान के कर्जा माफ़ी की बात हो, चाहे 25 रुपया क्विंटल में धान खरीदने की बात हो, और चाहे वो 35 किलो चावल राशन हर परिवार को देने की बात हो, चाहे 400 यूनिट तक की बिजली बिल आधा करने की बात हो, 4,000 प्रति मानक बोरा की दर से तेंदुपत्ता खरीदने की बात हो, चाहे छत्तीसगढ़ के 4 चिनारी, नरवा, गरवा, घुरुआ बाड़ी की बात हो, ये सब वादे हमने किए थे और वो काम अभी चल रहे हैं। जो घोषणा पिछली सरकार में किए थे वो निरंतर जारी रहेगा। जैसे 35 किलो चावल नमक मुफ्त देने की बात है, वो निरंतर जारी रहेगा। जैसे हमारे नरवा प्रोजेक्ट है, 13,000 नाले हमने पूरे कर लिए हैं, 30,000 हमारे छत्तीसगढ़ में नाले हैं, उसको वाटर रिचार्जिंग करने का काम हम लोग करेंगे। और जिस प्रकार से गौठान लगभग 10,500 गौठान बन चुके हैं और उसमें से 6,600 गौठान स्वावलंबी हो चुके हैं, अब वो कार्यक्रम निरंतर जारी रहेंगे, बल्कि उसको और मजबूती प्रदान करने का काम हम लोग करेंगे। जो बाड़ी योजना है उसे भी और आगे बढ़ाने का काम हम सब करेंगे। आदरणीय साथियों, इस चुनाव में जो घोषणा पत्र लेकर आए हैं, भरोसे का घोषणा पत्र है। भरोसा बरकरार, फिर से कांग्रेस सरकार, वादा है फिर निभाएंगे।
The BJP on Sunday released a list of 15 candidates which includes some fresh faces for the November 25th Rajasthan Assembly elections. The party has dropped sitting MLA from Mavli, Udaipur and fielded KG Paliwal instead. Dharmanarayan Joshi has been dropped and instead of him KG Paliwal has been chosen. Now among the new faces fielded by the party are Gopal Sharma from Civil Lines and Ravi Nayyar from Adarsh Nagar. Rajasthan goes to polls on the 25th of November. Currently, there's a Congress government in the state, but do remember since 1993, Rajasthan has a habit of giving alternate government. This time ahead, according to poll pundits, BJP has a fair chance of coming to power in the state, especially given the kind of relationship that Sachin Pilot and Ashok Gehlot had shared in these past years. In this past couple of years, it does appear that the BJP has a fair chance of coming to power in Rajasthan. Now, the party has released a list of 15 candidates and it has included some fresh faces. The party has dropped sitting MLA from Mavli, Dharmanarayan Joshi, and instead fielded KG Paliwal. Interestingly, the BJP has not named Vasundhara Raje as its chief minister. BJP has this time continued to maintain silence on that front. Switching our focus to some international stories now. African trade ministers and US officials are meeting in Johannesburg, where there are calls for a duty-free trade deal to be extended by 10 years to reassure businesses and investors. The question is, can a US-Africa trade renewal be quickly sewn up? Our next report tells you more.
At a garment factory in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, the future of a US-Africa trade deal is on Nora Nasimiyu's mind. She's worked here stitching Levi's jeans, largely for US customers, for 13 years. It's how she's put 6 children through school and university. But she fears an uncertain future if the African Growth and Opportunity Act, or AGOA, is not renewed.
So we are praying that they extend. If they extend, it is going to be a very big advantage towards Kenyans at large.
AGOA provides qualifying African countries with duty-free access to the world's biggest consumer market. Nasimiyu's employer, Pankaj Bedi, chairman of United Aryan EPZ, said 99% of their garments go to the US.
Once AGOA is gone, all the buyers are gone, all the productions are gone. So similarly, if AGOA is not there, it would be not sustainable for us to survive here. So AGOA is supreme. All 4 pillars of the business are based on AGOA only.
The program is due to expire in September 2025. But concern over its future is why African countries have been pushing for an early 10-year extension without changes. That's needed, they say, to reassure businesses and investors. Here's South African President Cyril Ramaphosa speaking at the summit on Friday.
United States and us, we're here for the long haul. So let us make AGOA a long-haul opportunity for all of us.
AGOA, which saw over $10 billion of African exports enter the US market duty-free last year, does enjoy long-standing bipartisan support from US lawmakers. They see it as critical in countering Chinese influence on the continent. However, there are divisions over the need for updates. A recent push in the Senate is aiming to pass a quick renewal deal. President Joe Biden has said he fully supports reauthorization. But his Secretary of State Antony Blinken said on Friday that Biden also wants to make it even better. African governments and US industry associations, however, worry that attempts to radically alter AGOA risk bogging it down in a Congress that is already struggling to pass even the most critical legislation.
Main indexes on the Wall Street witnessed an upward rally after the US jobs report showed signs of a cooling labor market. This also boosted hopes that the Federal Reserve will no longer be hiking interest rates. Take a look at this report.
Wall Street's main indexes rallied on Friday after the U.S. jobs report showed signs of a cooling labor market, boosting hopes the Federal Reserve is done with hiking interest rates. The Dow gained nearly 0.7%, the S&P 500 increased more than 0.9%, and the Nasdaq climbed almost 1.4%. Data from the Labor Department showed the economy added a less than expected 150,000 jobs in October, partly due to strikes at Detroit's Big Three automakers. The unemployment rate also edged up to 3.9%, and the number of jobs added in September was revised lower, all reflecting a slowdown in job growth.
Where we're moving into is a more normalized job growth distribution and probably a more normalized unemployment rate.
Dryden Pence is Chief Investment Officer at Pence Capital Management.
So when we're looking at 3.8, 3.9, slight tick up, it gives the Fed more ammunition to do what they have in effect done. And that's kind of put on the pause, switch from this moment where we're worrying about not how high, but to how long. And they're going to let kind of duration do their job for them.
The payrolls data helped push U.S. Treasury yields lower for the fourth consecutive session. During the session, the benchmark 10-year Treasury yield hit its lowest level in over 5 weeks. The jobs report also lifted big interest rate-sensitive tech stocks, including Microsoft and Google parent Alphabet, but not shares of Apple, which lost 0.5% a day after giving a dull outlook for holiday sales. Shares of Block, parent company of payments platform Square, jumped more than 10.5% after raising its annual adjusted profit forecast. But cybersecurity company Fortinet dropped nearly 12.5% after a downbeat fourth-quarter revenue forecast.
Now, a shipping and logistics giant is planning to cut 10,000 jobs as shipping demand is facing a dip all across the globe. Take a look at this report to know more.
Maersk announced on Friday it would cut at least 10,000 jobs due to overcapacity, rising costs and weaker prices. It comes as the Danish shipping group reported a steep drop in third-quarter profit and revenue. Maersk, which controls about 1/6 of the global container trade, flagged a steeper downturn in demand than expected and said it was in the process of cutting its workforce from 110,000 to below 100,000, which will save the company $600 million next year. Shares in the group, whose raft of clients include major companies like Nike and Walmart, slid over 11% Friday morning to their lowest level in 3 years. Analysts said this was mainly because Maersk said it would reconsider whether to continue its share buyback program into 2024. The firm said it expects global container volumes in its ocean business, its largest, to fall by up to 2% this year. That's primarily as a result of weak consumer demand and also destocking by firms following an initial scramble for goods in the aftermath of the global health crisis. The company kept its full-year guidance for revenue and operating profit, but now expects both to land at the lower end of the range.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of the Bulletin. Thank you very much for watching. Have a blessed day ahead.
News9 big coverage of 5 assembly polls. Mandate 2023.
Hello everyone, Namaskar. I'm music composer Ricky Cage. 3-time Grammy Award winner and a United Nations Goodwill Ambassador. And you're watching me on First Person on News9 Plus.
This and more streaming now on the world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.